Let's go over number 1436, destination city. The question says you are given an array of path, okay, where path at index I is equal to city A and city B, which means there exists a direct path going from city A to city B. Return the destination city, that is the city without any path going outgoing to another city. So we have array of path, right? And each path is going to be a city. So if you look at the given example, city A and city B, and what this means is that so if you ever got on an airplane, this is where you get into and this is where you get out to. So it's going from A to B, and let's say that we have another array B to C, and this is saying that it's going to B to C. And what they want us to find is we want to find the final outgoing city. It is guaranteed that the graph of path forms a line without any loop. Therefore, there will be exactly one destination city. So we're always going to have one final city, and it's not going to loop. If we look at our first path or first example, it says London to New York to Lima, Lima to Sao Paulo. So we get in here, we get out here. From New York we go out to Lima, this is in, and also into Sao Paulo. So our final result is going to be Sao Paulo. And if you noticed, the array is formatted like this, in and out. So what we want to do is we want to loop through our path and then find out destination that's unique. So if you look New York has in and out, Lima has in and out, and we have London and Sao Paulo, right? London is where we depart from. This is where we get in. So obviously this is not what we're looking for. We're going to one that is going to be the destination city, which means we're going to need to look at out. And when we compare our arrays, we want to find unique out destination city, and that's going to be our answer. And if you look at number 2, it says, well, actually let's list it in and out. So in the first one is going to be B, C, D, B, and C and A. So we have C here, we have C here, we have B here, and B here. And remember, although D is unique, this is not what we were looking for. We're looking for our destination. So the answer is going to be A. And if we have just one, obviously, this is going to be our result. If you guys find this helpful, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Thanks. Okay, now let's code our solution. So the first one is gonna be the most intuitive solution, one that better illustrates the concept. And like I said before, we're going to make 2 different arrays so that we know which ones from and to. So in and out. And I'll name it from. And this is going to be an empty array, and this is where we're gonna store our departing city, and the second one is gonna be named to, and this is our destination. I'm gonna loop through our array that I is going to be equal to 0 and I is gonna be less than path dot length increment mark 1. So we go through all of our path, and I'm going to push in from the push path index I, and so this refers to the specific path that we're given. So for the first one is going to be London and New York array, and I'm going to push in the first element, and that makes sense because we're going from London to New York. And I'll make another one so that we can push in our destination city path at index I, and this is going to be 1. All right, okay, it should be path. All right, so we have our array from and to. And if you want to take a look, console log from. So from has all the cities, London, New York, and Lima. So London, New York, and Lima. And if you want to check 2 has New York, Lima, and Sao Paulo. I hope that's how you say it. But anyways, so New York, Lima, and Sao Paulo. And next, we want to check for a value in 2 that is not in from array, and that makes sense because remember we are looking for our destination and destination is our to array, and it's going to be one that is not in our from array. So in order to check for that, what we're gonna do is we're gonna iterate through an array. So for const val of 2, we're gonna iterate through our to array. If from dot index of val is equal to -1, what we're going to do is we're going to return that value. Const. So what this for loop does is it's going to iterate through our to array, and it's going to check for each value from array. So it's going to check if New York is in from array. From array, and it's going to check if Lima is in from array, and it's going to check Sao Paulo is in from array. And if it's not, it's going to return -1, and that's what index of does. And if it does find a, let's say New York, it's going to give us the index of New York. So from the from array, New York is at index 0, 1, right? So it's going to equal to 1. And if this evaluates to 1, obviously it's not equal to -1, right? So it revaluates to false, and it keeps looping. And if it finds a value that's not in from array, it's going to return -1. And in this case, it's Sao Paulo. And since -1 is equal to -1, it's going to return that value, which is our city over here. And that's our destination city. And if you look at our results, we have Sao Paulo, A, and Z. So Sao Paulo, A, and Z. There we go. That's our first solution. Okay, now let's go for our second solution, and we'll use sets for this one. So const from is equal to new set. This is where we're going to store our departing city, our from. And next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to loop through our paths array. So for const path of paths, and I'm going to add in each departing city into our new set. So from that add path at index 0. Remember, path is also an array. So in our first iteration, it's going to be London and New York and Lima for our second one, and last one is going to be Lima and Sao Paulo. All right. So that's how we add our departing city. And if you want to check, let's console log from. And if you look, we have London, New York, and Lima. So London, New York, and Lima. Because remember, we add is an set method, and path at index 0 is obviously the first column. And what we're going to do next is we're going to iterate through our path array one more time. So for const path of paths, and now we want to do our check, and we want to check if New York is in from array, is Lima in from array, is Sao Paulo in our from array, or actually sets. So if set that has path at index 1, so this is going to check if New York is in here, Lima is in here, and Sao Paulo is in here. And if it's not, and remember, this is going to change. Let's say that this evaluates to false, a set that has path 1. What this exclamation mark does is it's going to change into true. And if this evaluates to true, this exclamation mark is going to change it to false. So if it doesn't have that particular city, it's going to return path at index 1. Okay, set is not defined. Oh, it should be from. And if we check our results, we get Sao Paulo, A, and Z, which we got before. Let's go over our last solution. I think this is most clear in terms of readability, if you just understand the parts. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a map object that's going to basically map our path. So path.reduce is going to take in an accumulator, and we're going to use an array destructuring from and to, and I'll explain this a little later if you're not familiar with it. And this is going to take in object. So our accumulator is an empty object, and this is where we're going to store our stuff. So accumulator from is going to equal to 2, and finally we're going to return our accumulator. All right, let me just console log it and show this to you. We'll console log map. So what we have here is a dictionary of our from and to paths. So our key is gonna be London, New York, and Lima, and our value is going to be New York, Lima, and Sao Paulo. And remember, we use array destructuring here, right? So when reduce is gonna iterate through our path array, which is an array of arrays, right? So it's going to first go through London and New York. And what this array destructuring is it's giving a name to our first element, and this is going to be referred to as from, which is our keys. And the second element is going to be referred to as to, which is our values. And over here, and remember, accumulator I said is an empty object, right? So we're setting to an empty object this from key and setting it equal to a value, which is 2. And if you want, if this is more intuitive, you could just name it key and value if you want, but I just keep it from and to, whatever works for you. And when we're done with that, we just get our mapped object. And the final thing that we want to do is we want to iterate through our path array again, and we're going to use find this time. And I'm going to use array destructuring one more time, but this time I'm going to just leave out the first one, comma and 2. And just follow with me over here, dot map 2. And so what I did was I'm also going through our path array one more time and I'm trying to find something. And this looks this is also array destruction. It looks a little different, right? What I did was I just left out the first one because I have no use for the first one, because I want to find my values in the map object. And if you want, you could have just left it here and just not use it at all, but I decided to just leave it because I just have no need for it. And it's going to check for each 2 element, which is New York, Lima, and Sao Paulo, in our map object. And remember, map has New York, Lima, which is going to equal to true. And remember, exclamation basically returns the opposite value. So this is going to evaluate to false, false, and finally, this is going to be evaluated to true. And we're not actually done here yet. When this evaluates true, it's going to return that particular path. So over here, we can see that it returned Lima and Sao Paulo, right? And the question asks us to get the destination city, which is our to variable. So, and as you can see in an array, our destination as an index 1, right? So we're going to do just that, and it's going to return the values that we want. So Sao Paulo, A, and Z.